So what if the next worker you see in a factory or a warehouse isn't, well, a person at all? What if there's something that looks like it walked straight out of a sci-fi movie? Today, we're going to break down a really fascinating report from Morgan Stanley all about a technology that's trying to make that happen: embodied AI and the rise of humanoid robots.
And this image, it just says it all, right? For decades, we've had to build special cages and assembly lines just for our robots. We've literally had to change our world to fit them. But what if the robot could just, walk right into our world and get to work? That's the huge shift we're talking about here.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the big problem we're trying to solve. Then, we'll get into why human-shaped robots might be the answer. After that, we're going to peek inside the robot's mind and see what kind of AI makes it all tick. Then, of course, we'll talk about the massive trillion-dollar opportunity. And finally, we'll get a little reality check with the 5 biggest hurdles they still have to overcome.
All right, so let's start with the why. Why is there such a massive push for this technology right now? This isn't just about building cool tech for the sake of it. It's about solving a very, very real economic problem.
Now check this out. In the world's biggest developed economies, the number of open jobs compared to the number of people looking for work has quadrupled since 2010. That's a huge gap. We're talking about a serious labor shortage, especially for those tough physical jobs in warehouses and factories where the workforce is getting older and, frankly, fewer people want to do that kind of work.
And here's the real kicker. You can't just stick any old robot in there. I mean, think about it for a second. Every tool, every workbench, every single doorknob is made for a human being, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and fingers. To automate that with traditional robots, you'd have to tear down and redesign everything. Or you could just design a robot that's built to fit into our world.
And that leads us right to the humanoid solution. This isn't just a new gadget, it's a completely different way of thinking about automation itself.
So let's put them side by side. On one hand, you've got your classic industrial robots. They're amazing at doing one single thing, over and over, locked inside a safety cage. But on the other hand, you have the goal for humanoids, to work right there next to us, using our existing tools in our messy, unpredictable spaces, all without needing to spend a fortune redesigning the entire building.
One of the most unexpected things here is the psychological part. The report points out that because these robots kind of look and move like us, they might actually be easier for human workers to accept and work alongside. They feel less alien. And that could be a really big deal for getting them adopted without a lot of friction.
But how in the world do they actually work? I mean, how do they think? To get that, we need to pop the hood and look inside the robot's mind. And what we find is pretty cool. It's kind of like a story of 2 different brains.
First, you've got what the report calls the lizard brain. This is all the low-level stuff, walking without falling over, keeping its balance, catching itself if it gets pushed. It's all about reflexes, and it has to process information incredibly fast. But then you have the cerebrum. This is the smart part. It's what sees an instruction like, hey, go pick up that box, understands what a box is, and figures out a plan to go get it. And honestly, this part, the cognitive part, is the biggest challenge we have right now.
So you can kind of think of the AI's progress in 3 stages. Right now, we're mostly at level 1. Most humanoids out there can do very specific, pre-programmed tasks. The real cutting-edge research is trying to crack level 2, getting a robot to adapt a skill so it can pick up any kind of bottle, not just one specific one it was trained on. And level 3, where a robot can learn a totally new job just by watching someone do it? Yeah, that's still the dream. That's purely aspirational for now. So what's holding back that cerebrum? What's the big roadblock? It boils down to one word: data. It's the exact same problem self-driving cars have been dealing with for years. To learn how to work in a human world, the AI needs to see millions of hours of humans doing things. And actually collecting all that high-quality data is just incredibly slow and super expensive.
Now, even with all those huge challenges, there's a reason so much money is pouring into this space. And no surprise, it's all about the size of the prize. The economic potential is just staggering.
We're talking about a potential market size in the trillions of dollars. That's just based on the value of human labor that could, in theory, be done by a robot. And honestly, that might even be a lowball estimate. If these robots get cheap and capable enough, they could create whole new industries we haven't even thought of yet.
But let's pump the brakes a little. This isn't happening tomorrow. Right now, we're in the very early experimental phase. The report suggests that by the middle of the decade, we'll start seeing the first real deployments, probably in predictable places like warehouses. But widespread, meaningful adoption, that's not really expected to kick off until the end of the decade.
And that brings us to our final section, the reality check. I mean, this all sounds incredible, but what could go wrong? What could slow this whole thing down? The report lays out 5 major hurdles that we have to get over.
So first, like we said, the AI still struggles to generalize. It's good at one thing, but what happens when something unexpected comes along? Second, that data problem is massive. Getting enough of the right data is a huge bottleneck. Third, these are incredibly complex machines. Just making them tough and reliable enough to work day in and day out in a factory is a major engineering challenge. Fourth, the numbers have to make sense. They have to be cheaper or more efficient than a human worker. And finally, the whole grand vision really depends on future AI breakthroughs that, let's be honest, are not guaranteed. And all of that leaves us with this one massive question at the end of the day. The road to get there is long, it's uncertain, and it's filled with all these hurdles we just talked about. But if we do get there, to a world where a machine can do almost any physical job, we have to start thinking, really thinking, about what that means for our economy, for society, and for the very idea of what work even is.